Welcome to the Family Office Sherpa podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Parkin, founder and managing director of Whole Road Investments. The aim of this podcast is to provide practical and implementable advice for those looking to build, manage, or service a family office. This is not, however, investment advice, so please check the disclaimer in the show notes. In this episode, we are saying to clients, leverage your investment counterparty spend.
This is the Family Office Sherpa.
So what do I mean by this? In a nutshell, when you're engaging a wealth manager, asset manager, or any kind of counterparty, really, don't just look at what the manager delivers on paper, be it total portfolio, CPI plus whatever, or some version of a strategy as an implementation of global equities or something like that. Look at what you can leverage behind that. I wouldn't say facade because facade implies it's not real, but you know what I mean. That initial strategy. This can be, for, like I said, for wealth managers, individual fund managers, professional services, whatever. It's such a great leverage point for family offices to say, right, for the dollar that we're spending here, what do we get? And as someone who once sat on the fund manager side, I've really seen this firsthand, what the best advisors and family offices are asking questions of their counterparties. They don't stop at, oh, what does the strategy do? It's more like, what can we access beyond the strategy or beyond the performance? Right. So number one is to try and become, or at least be, a valued client. I know most people, most counterparties in particular, say, oh, no, we don't tier clients. They do, right? Because it makes sense. From a commercial perspective, you want to give a larger corporate cuddle to those paying higher fees because that's how businesses work. So if you're meaningful enough to a manager, you can access what we probably call soft dollar value. So here's what we're looking for, right? Or here's what we're talking about. And these are just some of the examples. So have a think about it. Think about who your counterparties are. Think about all the stuff that needs to be on in the background there. Think about how important you are to them as a client and think, well, what other questions should we ask? But we'll get to the questions in a minute. But these are the items that I would say we're looking to leverage here. So when I help family offices structure their office, like the investment office, it's really around, all right, so what are we getting from these relationships? Now, you don't want to take the piss, right? You don't want to be asking for a lot of information and then they go, you know what? They just keep asking. We don't get anything. I've had that as well, which is, again, on the fund manager side, which is, do this for us, do this research, this, and then nothing. Right? You really do need to understand that they're a commercial operation, but they're also an operation where you can get access. Right. Number one, research support. Now, with AI and all the rest of it, you are starting to get a little bit more of that free research. But what all that is really is scraping the internet and things like that and publish reports and sort of gathering. What we want from our counterparties is, proprietary insights, especially if you consider a strategic client. So really looking for custom projects to a certain degree. Again, this depends on the tiering and it depends on their appetite for this kind of thing. But again, you don't ask, you don't get. The other thing you do is due diligence collaboration. Sometimes when we're looking at managers, in particular wealth managers, and we say, and part of this is part of the RFP or the due diligence from our point of view, and we say, well, are they going to be able to do some of the heavy lifting on the DD when because we're such a flat structure, we're a smaller resourced office. So good managers often provide access to their own managers or thematic due diligence or whatever it ends up being. This can save time and adds depth to your process. Really what we're looking for. The other one being ideation, investment ideas. If you're a top tier client or you're a good client, you can tap into the manager's chief and investment office or their analyst team for portfolio brainstorming, tactical position ideas, or, question thematics, those sorts of things. I think, asking questions and getting some real and in-depth and thoughtful responses can be super helpful. The other one being network leverage. Managers often open the door, especially you've got multi-asset class managers or managers of managers, multi-strat kind of things as well. They can be really interesting. And wealth managers that have got a good curated list. That's why you look at managers, good wealth managers with size and scale that might have access. And you go, well, that's the sort of thing that I want. I want to talk to that fund manager over there. I did a research report once for a large consultant. And one of the questions I asked the family offices was, what's one of the major parts? What do you use wealth managers and sort of consultants for? And they said access to the people touching the money, the people managing the money. They don't want to be intermediated. They don't want to have someone say, well, this is what this fund manager said, or this is what this fund manager said. They want to get direct access to them. And you don't get direct access until you are a client of a certain size. The other thing you get is, my personal favorite, is reporting and infrastructure. Just fantastic if you can get a wealth manager or an asset manager or a counterparty like a professional services or something like that to sort of go, we will take on the heavy lifting of aggregation and getting the data sets together and reconciliation of this information and all of it pushed together, and then we'll provide you a lovely report, and then you can use that to manage the total portfolio. Love that. Love leveraging into that depth. The other thing as well is, and this is probably, I'll leave it at this one, but there's many. Just think about it. Think about all the things that you would love someone else to do, basically. The other one is technology access. Clients of scale can access some fantastic but super expensive tools. If you think about the biggest asset manager out there, BlackRock, one of the biggest reasons, well, not one of the biggest reasons, one of the reasons that they are so successful and they do leverage is Aladdin. That's an incredibly powerful tool that any asset owner like a family office would love to have, but they're not going to get access to that unless they're at a certain level. So sometimes, and we've seen this a little bit, which is that some of the larger wealth managers or private banks might have access to these fund manager tools. So you're almost going, well, I'm going to put my money with manager A, wealth manager A, because they have a relationship with fund manager A that has this amazing technology that we can leverage into. So it's not just first level, it's second level, it's third scope, whatever. So technology access is something to think about as well. Think about all the things that they do and, see if you can leverage into it. So why does it matter? I guess this is one of the reasons why I push back against spreading portfolios too thinly. So a lot of family offices that I start with, we do the investment policy, we think about how we're going to implement that investment policy. And sometimes the feedback is, we're going to need to get 2 or 3 managers as part of the implementation. A lot of the time I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I would say that if we do our RFP correctly and we get a good fit, why spread it over more? Why not concentrate the assets, especially if we're not talking, hundreds of millions of dollars here, which we might be talking 20, 30, 50 million, whatever it ends up being. We would like to be an important client for this manager. So we can leverage into these sort of things. If we spread it too thinly, A, you'll end up with like 150 constituents, but also B, what'll end up happening is that you won't be seen as important enough to give access to all these things. So I think it's an important concept, and I'm all for counterparty risk management and I'm all for diversification. But as we all know, there's such a thing as over-diversification. And I think in this case, I think that might be the case. So let's think about the questions, right? So how do you bring this mindset of leveraging their spend into the conversations? Let's use some questions, and I don't know, if you're a fund manager or wealth manager listening to this and you go, I wouldn't mind being asked that question because it increases engagement, it makes me more aware of what the client's looking for, then that's the way you should view it. If you're a family office, you should be looking at this and going, well, these are the questions I might start asking my managers of because I would like to get more leverage for the spend, right? So from the research side, what I've seen work well is, can we participate in your roundtables or those conversational pieces where it's the investment team that might be having some discussions around what they're looking to do next in terms of managing a portfolio. Another thing to do is, do you produce thematic or macro research we can access? Can we get access to? We discounted a very large global manager because they wouldn't allow us access to their research portal, and the other one did. And not to say that was the only reason we didn't go with that manager, but it was a big reason. Like, here's access, here's our research, here's this wonderful library of information. The other thing is, is there an ability to collaborate? This is what our analyst has done, or this is what our investment office has done, or this is what we've done. Can you have a look at it? Does it hold water? Can you review it? Can you put some scenario analysis around it? Is this asset going to perform the same as this asset? This is our workings. Do you agree? Stuff like that. I reckon that's really interesting, really cool. So I would say these are the questions that any good manager or wealth manager should welcome, to be perfectly honest. Next one, due diligence. Just asking these sort of questions. Sort of, what kind of manager or fund screening do you do internally? And can we tap into that process? This is a fund manager come across our desk or has been introduced to us. We don't really have the depth or the time to do it. Can we give this to you and you put it through that same process? Now, can be a tricky one because they'll have their own compliance and things like that to deal with. But if they allow for that kind of, even if it's just an overview, this is how we would view it, or this is how we would put it through our process, with all the normal caveats of, this is not, you shouldn't take this as advice, you shouldn't, all that kind of good stuff. You do see it, and I think that's an important leverage point. The other thing is, can we attend investment manager DD sessions? Can we understand the way that you ask the questions of these managers? And it's a bit of a teach a man to fish kind of situation. So I think that's a really good question to ask as well. On the technology and tool side, do you provide access to, let's give an example, pacing models for private markets, rebalancing tools, data overlays, and research overlays, things like that? Do we get access to that? Also, what infrastructure do you use for your own reporting or allocations? And would that be suitable for our office? We see lots of really big lots of really big reporting platforms that have been taken over by the likes of MSCI and NASDAQ and all that sort of stuff. And the reason is because institutional clients use that data set and push it into there. So if there's a big institutional asset manager or wealth manager or whatever professional services using this platform, can we have a look at it? How did you come up with the process of determining that was the best platform for you? Just those sorts of things as well. Just trying to rely on their DD for tech that we might want to use. Another one is people and network. Can you introduce us to other offices? Can you introduce us to expert A, B, and C? We have a family office council meeting or family office investment meeting or the investment committee meeting every quarter, and we need to bring a guest. Can you provide someone for that? They might have a specialist at the moment it's all about AI and things like that, but it might be for a particular asset class and all these sorts of things. Can someone come in and give us some access? And also, like you said, can you make introductions to like-minded investors or fund managers? If you're a wealth manager, there's a really big upside in getting these questions because you can show them that you've done the DD, that this is the sort of manager that we should be using. And it can create really good reciprocity, maybe, just that sense that, you're doing work for them and they'll be more loyal to you. And reporting and operations. Can you take on that heavy lifting for us, please? Can you aggregate for us? Can we benchmark, in terms of reporting, if you're reporting this is on the manager side. If the manager is reporting on a greater number of clients, can we use that for a benchmark or something like that? Just there's lots of surveys and things like that come out. But I think a lot of institutional clients in particular rely on data sets that come out of big custodial banks like State Street and things like that. That State Street data set, even like Adapar and those sort of reporting platforms that are more aligned to family offices and RIAs, they they publish data sets as well around sort of benchmarks and all sorts of different sort of asset class movements and things like that. So I think can we get access to that would be really good. And then lastly, strategic access. What additional services or capabilities are reserved for top tier clients? So when you become a client, you may not notice this, but they're going to be, like I said, they're going to be tiering you. And there's going to be reasons that you get tiered. You could be tiered purely on an assets under management or a fee-based tiering system. But if the manager is of quality, they should be a little bit more subjective, which is things like, we think this client will potentially grow from this to this if we create a good client service relationship. So you might be tiered low because there's an expectation that you won't grow, even though your assets might be high. So it's a little bit more nuanced than this is how much money we've got, this is where we should be tiered. There's a lot of moving parts associated with that. It's also up to the relationship manager or the advisor as well. Get an advisor that's going to advocate for you. Be your champion within the firm. There's something to be said for having a powerful partner or advisor or RM, because they can, even despite you might being a lower size, they might be able to get you more access. You've just got to, have that good relationship. So I think strategic access is a good one. The other last one, and I'll leave this with everyone, is what does it take to get on that list? So just asking that question. What would it take for us to get this? What would it take for us to get this? Having those very upfront personal conversations a lot of the time on onboarding, but not always. And like I said, when I was on the other side, on the sales side, you always knew the advisors that had an ability to sort of go, well, I know what I can ask. And that's a sign of a good advisor or consultant or whatever, is knowing what to ask of the counterparties and to leverage on behalf as an advocate for the family. So maybe that's the last point. Get someone that knows the questions to ask. So that's it. That's it for the episode. Hopefully it was of interest. If it was, make sure you click the little bell alert thing and rate it. If you want to put a comment on it, that'd be awesome too. If you're looking for more family office insights, there's always you can join the thousands of other subscribers to the Sherpa newsletter. You can find that at wholesale.com.au. It's now in its 6th year. If you're looking for assistance in establishing or managing a family office, which is what I do under Whole Road, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or just email me, Shaun, so SHAUN, at wholroad, that's HALLROAD.com.au. Till next time.